Well, hi there, food friends. It's Kevin, and welcome to Cavalcade of Food. And of course, as you can see, I'm back in one of my favorite spots, the old cookbook library here at the Cavalcade in Croswell. So, I have been enjoying doing this series on vintage cookbooks, and I hope you've been enjoying watching them as well. And I have heard from a lot of you, either through comments left on the videos, and I do read them. I try to respond to as many as I can, or emails that people have sent to me that they were wondering if I had the Encyclopedia of Cooking. So actually, I have a couple of different ones. I have a one by Women's Day magazine. They did an Encyclopedia of Cooking. But when people were describing it to me, they said it was a gigantic book. And so I knew exactly what they meant. And here it is. Actually, here it is and here it is, because the Margaret McBride Encyclopedia of Cooking came in two formats, and we're going to look at both of them. Contents are the same, by the way, in both of these, and they came out relatively the same time. These have a copyright date of 1958, and this one has, the big one, has a copyright date of 1959 and 1960. So this is sort of two sides of the same coin, but they're called the Mary Margaret McBride Encyclopedia of Cooking. And to say this is, let me turn it this way, you can get an idea of just how big this is. And this one is actually sort of a collection of supplements. And so this one is a collection of hardcover volumes. How these were sold was basically through installments at the supermarkets. So volume one would be out, and a supermarket, say A&P, Safeway, Kroger, wherever you lived, Piggly Wiggly, maybe even independent grocers might have volume one, and they would have it for a couple of weeks, and then volume two and volume three. So it was a kind of a way to get you back into the supermarket, where you'd probably buy other things in addition to the next installment of the Mary Margaret McBride Encyclopedia of Cooking. There are 12 in the series. So here, this is a complete set, and all 12 of these volumes are contained here. So this is a binder which you would get, and then you could add your supplements here. I don't know whether or not this was ever sold as a complete unit with everything in it, because when you look at how it's put together, it's clearly 12 individual sections that were put into the binder. So if anybody happens to know, maybe somebody, if you remember, if you or a relative bought this brand new, complete, maybe it was available in that way. But this, certainly the way that this looks, is especially looks like a supplement to me. And of course, these 12 individual hardcover volumes were sold separately. So let's talk about Mary Margaret McBride first, and then the cookbook, because it's almost two different things. Who was Mary Margaret McBride? Does anybody remember? Well, believe me, she's even before my time, for the most part. She was born in Missouri in 1899, and she went to the University of Missouri, and she got a degree in journalism in 1919. Now, in 1919, it was not a commonplace, really, for a lot of women to go to college. So she was kind of ahead of her time in that regard. But she did have a journalism degree, and she worked as a reporter. Her first job was at the Cleveland Press. And then in 1924, she got a job at the New York Evening Mail newspaper. And then she also did a lot of freelance writing for magazines like the Saturday Evening Post, Cosmopolitan, and Good Housekeeping. She also collaborated on some travel-oriented books. And then in 1937, and I'm not sure how this came about, but she actually was hired by CBS Radio. There was no television at the time. She was hired by CBS Radio to host a program. And so she interviewed very prominent figures in the political realm, in entertainment, in the arts and literature. It was really a talk show, an interview program, hosted by a woman, and not surprisingly, most of her audience were women because it was on during the day, and she really kind of structured the program and the interviews to the interests of women at the time. By the 1940s, her audience for her program was 6 to 8 million listeners. That's pretty big. That's a lot of people listening. And so she was able, because of this large audience she was quite influential and able to get a lot of very prominent personalities from all walks of the world to come on and talk to her. So she never gave any advance notice, was the other thing, to who her guest was going to be. So people would tune in just to see who Mary Margaret McBride was going to talk to that day. And interspersed with the interviews, she'd have a lot of sort of what I would call little things that might be of interest to women with regards to housekeeping and family and things of that sort. Again, it was the 1940s, and many women did not work outside of the home. She also was a bit of a trailblazer in terms of she broke the color line for interviewing guests. So she actually would have on any given show, she might have white, black, Asian, a mixture of guests on the show. And while we wouldn't think anything of that now, in the 1940s, this was something that was not done often, if at all, in mainstream media. It was very segregated. And so Mary Margaret McBride only cared whether or not somebody was an interesting guest, and she would get them all on the show. There is actually a tea rose that was developed and named after her. So there's a rose called the Mary Margaret McBride. But by the time these cookbooks came along, again, the late 1950s, Mary Margaret McBride's career was sort of in its twilight. She really had peaked in popularity in the 1940s on radio. She did some television, but by the 1950s, of course, the medium of television had predominated, and there were so many more people doing what she used to do on the radio, and younger people and other celebrities that Mary Margaret McBride sort of started to fall in terms of her popularity. But she did have name recognition, and she used that to her advantage by endorsing certain things. And as an example, she put her name on this Encyclopedia of Cooking. Was she a cook? My research doesn't indicate that she was known for her culinary skills. She never married. She did not have any children. And there's no mention that really she herself ever claimed to be a cook or possess any particular talents in food preparation. But again, she had a name that was very trusted among American women, especially because so many of them had always listened to her on the radio. So she lent her name to these books, and really that's about as far as it goes, because even in the foreword to these books, there's nothing in here from Mary Margaret McBride. Perhaps there was something at the point of sale where these things were sold in the supermarket or in advertising in newspapers or magazines for these volumes from Mary Margaret McBride. But in the book itself, other than having her signature on the cover above, here it is, on the big volume, there is nothing, absolutely nothing in here from Mary Margaret McBride. So that's who she was, and what she had to do with these cookbooks, I don't know that it went beyond her putting her name on it as a hook to get people excited about another cookbook offering, particularly one that was so voluminous here, as opposed to, say, Betty Crocker or Better Homes and Gardens, which was a simple one-volume kind of a book and didn't require, all these installments. But that aside, there are literally thousands and thousands of recipes in these books, Encyclopedia of Cooking, including wonderful color photographs and illustrations. In this one, all the inner covers are the same. It's all the same photo. And a lot of these were pictures that were lifted from cookbooks and promotional materials put out by different food organizations, manufacturers, farm cooperatives, and things like that. I will say that, again, there's, look at that, look at those chips and chip dip there. I will say that the illustrations are, and photographs, some of them are in black and white, some of them are in color. Again, we have little illustrations that go throughout the volume here, and very mid-century and very of its time. So these are put together by the Homemakers Research Institute. Again, it says Mary Margaret McBride, but this is published by the Homemakers Research Institute of Evanston, Illinois. A woman by the name of Anne London was the director, and she wrote the introduction. And again, looking at the credits page up front, you will not find Mary Margaret McBride listed anywhere here. And again, the introduction is by Anne London, the director of the Homemakers Research Institute. But in this first volume, So this would be the first one that you would buy. It says what the complete Encyclopedia of Cooking contains. And so this will tell you what all the volumes are, whether you bought it this way or this way. So volume 1 is ABCs for cooks, appetizers and snacks for parties and meals, bean bakes for parties and meals. Volume 2 is the beverage book, milk drinks, punches, teas, fruit drinks, holiday drinks. Also in Volume 2, bread, biscuits, and rolls, yeast breads, coffee cakes, donuts, fried breads, buffet meals. Volume number 3 is the cake and torte book, along with candy, carving guide, casserole cookery. You can see that's sort of alphabetical. It sounds like there's a lot of alliteration here as I read these subjects, but it's definitely breaks down all the categories of cooking and food and puts it alphabetically, and that's how it's arranged. So volume 4 continues with cheese, Chinese cookery, cookies, desserts, eggs, electric blender, cookery. Volume 5 is fish and shellfish, freezing guide, frozen foods, frostings and fillings, frozen desserts, fruit and fruit desserts, and game cookbook. Things like wild duck, pheasant, grouse, rabbit, squirrel, raccoon, possum, venison. And then volume 6 is the hamburger cookbook, high altitude cookery, home bartender's guide, infant and child feeding, jiffy cooking, leftovers, lunch boxes. Number 7 is macaroni, spaghetti, and noodles, meal planning, meals for two, meat cookbook, and older folks food guide. A dietary guide on foods for health as we grow older, to help those who would add years to their life and life to their years through better nutrition. See, this is when you had people who were home economists and dietitians writing cookbooks, and it was important, and those were important jobs, which we don't have very much anymore. Volume 8, outdoor cookery, pastries and pies, pickling, preserving, and canning, potato and sweet potato. Volume 9, poultry, pressure cooking, quantity cooking, refrigerator desserts, rice, salads, salad dressing, sandwiches, sauce and gravy, souffle, soups and chowders. Volume 11, stuffings and dumplings, table setting. How to set a table properly. Boy, you want to talk about a lost art. Even for we just don't eat at a table like we used to anymore. And people are eating in the living room, off their laps, and out of cardboard and styrofoam and stuff like that. And there was a time when we just ate together at the same time, and the table was set, and it wasn't formal, certainly, but there was an order to how the table was set, and it made sense. And these are things that we have lost, and we're trying to keep them going here at the Cavalcade. That's part of what it's all about. But that time at the dinner table was crucial in inter-family communication. At least it was for us. We talked about all kinds of things, not just stuff going on, stuff coming up, all kinds of things. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah. table settings, vegetables, weight control, wines, young people's cookbook. And then the last volume, volume 12, is the Cook's Handbook, a kitchen manual full of thousands of useful facts about food and kitchen equipment with labor, time, and money-saving hints, advice, and suggestions. And then an index of everything that is in the preceding 11 chapters. Whoop, put it in the wrong place. So there you have it. The flow is exactly the same in this giant volume here, the Encyclopedia of Cooking. And look at this. Because this is a larger format, you can see, I hope that it's not getting totally washed out from the light, but you can see that this offers, again, photographs and illustrations and a little bit of larger print, but it follows the same order as the hardcover 12-volume book. So, Mary Margaret McBride. We now know who she was and why she was an important figure, and sort of adjacently important in cooking because she put her name on a cookbook, and that perhaps lured some consumers to purchase them. But the Homemakers Association really edited and put these recipes together and brought them to the public. So if you remember seeing either the hardcover or the binder edition of the Encyclopedia of Cooking, or you remember something about Mary Margaret McBride, share it in the comments. Love to read that stuff, because really part of what goes on here is sort of taking us back to things that we remember, and cookbooks certainly stir a lot of those kinds of memories. They do for me, at least. So I want to say thank you to everybody for watching. The website is cavalcadeoffood.com. If you want to go there, that's a great place to connect with other YouTube episodes of mine, with my other YouTube channel called Always Analog, which is very much about writing instruments, pencils, pens, typewriters, as well as my weekly radio program, the Cavalcade Radio Hour, which airs live on Saturdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, although you can listen from anywhere in the world as long as you have internet access. But you can get all that at Cavalcade of Food. And I just want to say again, thank you. I appreciate your time for watching. Here's another cookbook episode, and much more. We got a lot of cookbooks here, folks, so much more to come. I hope everybody's well. I hope everybody's enjoying. It's absolutely a beautiful autumn season here in Michigan. I hope it is where you are. For those of you who got caught up in the terrible weather in the southeast from these hurricanes, my thoughts are down there with you, and I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're safe, and I just hope that things get better. I've been watching on TV, and it's just awful. So anyways, again, thank you. Everyone take care, be well, and we'll see you again soon here on Cavalcade of Food. Bye, everybody.